Hey everybody, welcome back to World of Tanks with Hachiman. Except this isn't World of Tanks. This looks like a browser in Wikipedia. This is the start of a new series I'm going to do. Science of Victory, the Ooda Loop. The Ooda Loop, also known as the Boyd Loop or the Boyd-Ooda Loop, is its logic is what it is. It's a logical representation of the process needed to go through to attain victory on the tactical or strategic level. It was developed by this guy, John Boyd, hence Boyd Loop or Boyd-Ooda Loop. Ooda is not the other person that developed it. Ooda is what it stands for, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. John Boyd was a fighter pilot in the United States Army Air Corps. Joined in 1944 at the end of World War II. He was still in junior high. He did serve in Korea, flying a fighter there. And when he left Korea, he came back to the U.S. and was and attended the fighter weapons school, which was a very prestigious school for fighter pilots at the time, and did so well that he stayed on to be an instructor. It was while he was an instructor that he developed the concept of the Ooda Loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And really, it wasn't a new thing. All the Ooda Loop is a representation of what all the greatest commanders in history have ever done. Okay, now, Hachi, come on, man, I'm falling asleep here. Bear with me, because this is important. The Ooda Loop applies to war, it applies to individual battles, it applies to business, it applies to litigation, and it applies to World of Tanks. And if you don't think so, well, you're wrong, or perhaps I haven't proven it to you yet. This video is going to explain the theory of the Ooda Loop, and it will, and then following videos will actually be replays in which I explain how Ooda applies as the battle goes on. It won't be my normal commentary. What Ooda Loop is this right here. This is a representation of the Ooda Loop. Okay. And those of you familiar with logic and computer programs, this should look very, very familiar to you, because it's simply a flowchart. And we start with observe. Observations are brought to you from a couple different directions, and we'll talk about this from the standpoint of a World of Tanks battle. Unfolding interaction with environment, where you are on the map, and what is changing in that environment, not just physical characteristics of the map, but also what you are observing in your location, meaning enemy tanks in their locations, for example. Outside information, your observations are impacted by information transmitted to you by, say, other members of the team. Your scouts spot some tanks over in this direction in a place where you hadn't normally expected them. Unfolding circumstances, you're holding your position and enemy tanks suddenly come into view. Not spotted by scouts, but your personal view. The observations then lead you to the next level. Okay. You orient yourself based on your observations, new information, previous experiences, how you analyze the observation, and in the case of World of Tanks, perhaps cultural traditions, genetic heritage doesn't really apply, but it applies in many other circumstances. That's when you move on to the decide point. Now, when you decide, you're making a decision. You're formulating a hypothesis based on your observations and how you're oriented that will lead you to the action stage. Now, it may also lead you back. You may determine you don't have enough information to decide, and you kick yourself back to the observation section. Okay? Then you move on to where you act, the last part of the OODA loop. And when you act is when you're testing your hypothesis. You see that enemy tank over there, you're in a good position to fire at him, you decide to do so, and you take the shot. Maybe you hit, maybe you don't, maybe you penetrate, maybe you don't, but you took the shot. When you've created your action, you're back to the beginning. Okay? Unfolding interaction with environment can also change and bring you back to the beginning. Something could very well change in your immediate environment during your action, which may force you back into the observation stage. Now, this is not generally going to be conscious. Okay, this is going to be all intuition, sixth sense, the force, whatever you want to call it. But if you can learn to understand this and to use it properly, because there are times where you will use it intellectually on a macro level, meaning for example, at the beginning of the game, you look at the makeup of the two teams, you look at the map, where are you within your team, who opposes you at what level, where are they likely to go on the map, how am I going to act to the best advantage. Okay, that's a macro level where you're intellectually going through these steps. On a micro level, in the heat of battle, you're going to be doing this automatically, and you're doing it whether you think you are or not. Here's the key where it becomes a loss, shall we say. We've all seen in the very beginning of a game, within the first minute, where the whole team YOLOs one way. You know, you've got just a big team of lemmings that goes one direction. Well, what happened? Well, they didn't do this. They didn't start at the beginning. They started here at decide or here at act. Well, that's an automatic failure. You are going to fail in that instance. You have made a decision to act in a certain way based on no observation, based on no input, based on no information. Additionally, when the team does this and begins to go off in its own direction, you have the opportunity to observe that is going on, that I'm in this pack of tanks that have all decided to go this direction, and I'm going to make the conscious decision to change my actions, and I'm going to go a different direction. So often that doesn't happen. Now, this is not the formula to win every game, and this is not the formula to stay alive in every game, nor is this the formula to do more damage and to earn an Ace Tanker Mastery Badge every game. However, you will find on the games where you did play better than you've ever played before and you earned that Ace Tanker Mastery Badge, you will find when you look back at it, you followed this formula, this computer program, this logic problem, this rationality over and over and over through the steps. You did not make an action without the proper information every time. I guarantee it. Okay? So to say this doesn't really apply is wrong. What I'm going to do is produce a series of videos where you can see this in action, and I am going to explain how the OODA loop applied at every point in the game in terms of my actions. And both on the macro and the micro level. And that's going to make it all clear. You want to win more games, you have to understand this process. Yes, your hit percentage, your penetration percentage has an impact on the game, how much damage you do, but there are times when you have to accept the fact that you personally are not going to get that kill, not going to do the damage, because you have to take another action based on this right here, based on this OODA loop. You have to take another action to help your team win the game. There have been more times than I can count where I've sacrificed myself to hold a flank just long enough for my team to win. Perfect example would be the Clan Wars battle that my clan 9ATD won and is on YouTube and has received a fair number of views. I made the conscious decision to sacrifice certain guys so that we could hold the cap. And I'm going to go through these videos on the OODA loop with you so that you guys can really get a clear image of this. I'm running short, but that's what the OODA loop is. You're going to see in the future how it impacts the game, and it's a great piece of information, guys. Please like the video, subscribe for more, and you'll see these videos coming soon. Thanks.